Hello, this is Joe from Nerd in Korea. We're doing another one of our budget counterspells here. We're talking about the tax counterspells. Okay, tax, what I mean is they have to pay extra, so it does not counterspell outright, but they pay extra. So it'll be like counterspell unless they pay 3 or pay more, hopefully more. And then, yeah. It forces them to use up more mana, basically, and if they don't have the mana, the spell is countered. So hey, these let me get that out of the way. These counter spells give the opponent the chance to override the counter spell by paying extra mana, like I just said. They force opponents to use resources, so that's the main thing. This is about using up resources. They can and if you use these, people might not want to attack you or cast spells against you at all. So this is more, I think, more of like a meta. It is more meta. So if they do have to pay tax, usually that means they're not getting another spell. If they do have the mana and they do pay it, it's going to cost them a spell cast that turn. Yeah. All right. So they can still cast a spell later, but that turn, it's going to take it away. So it is very much like a more, yeah. I think it's harder to, like, in-game. People like to say, oh, in-game, this does this exactly. And you don't really get to say that with this. So I understand why people don't like them as much, but I think they are very, very effective. And maybe even more effective in some ways. So, yeah. People do not like paying extra mana, that's for sure. Oh. Alright, so Miscast is our first one here, going for 173. I think this is the most common one. Only used against instants and sorceries, so there's the downside right there. It does only cost 1 as well, so that's very good, but maybe used early game to counter a board wipe. I think I would want this, yeah. I would want this in my hand as a 1 mana counter to a board wipe. Yeah, early to mid game, if someone's going to wipe the board, it's usually a sorcery, so this is really good for that. And yeah, paying that extra 3 late game is not a big deal, maybe, but early game, if they're casting, you know, like a 5 mana board wipe, they're not going to have 3 more mana to drop on this tax. So this will just be a counter spell, a 1 mana counter spell. Later in the game, you will likely be able to counter a second spell. So again, later in the game, if you get this, it's still good, but wait for the second spell, right? Don't do the first one, they'll just pay the tax. The second one, they might not have the extra mana. Or might not want to do it on the second one, anyway. Lookout's Dispersal. Okay. 16 cents, so quite a bit cheaper. Reduction in the cost if you control the pirate. So again, it's 2 and a blue to make them pay 4 extra for any spell or counter it. Again, but if you control a pirate, it is 1 and a blue. So again, very, very cheap if you have a pirate. Pirate might sound like an unusual creature type, but it is getting more and more and more common. I think it's very easy. You don't need a whole bunch of pirates in your deck to have 1 on the battlefield, right? You need 1. 1 pirate or even 1 changeling. Much easier. Having a changeling on the battlefield will fulfill any requirement, really. 16 cents, and 4 is a very steep tax, right? 4 extra, you're gonna have to be really into the late game already if they're able to drop 4 extra to pay for the 1 spell. So this is a great spell to have just in your back pocket, I think. And my computer's not working. Yay! Always! So much fun. Metallic Rebuke. This, I have a Layla deck. Or not a Layla. Alesha, but not. Well, I have an Alesha and a Layla deck, but it's not the one I'm thinking of. Saheeli. There you go. Saheeli deck. This is improvise. Improvise means that you can tap artifacts to pay for the colorless mana. A lot of artifacts you don't need to tap at all to use them, so tapping them to pay for mana cost is very easy to do, right? If it's something that just has a static ability, tapping it doesn't affect it, right? That doesn't turn it off or anything. You might as well use it as a mana source as well. So I really love Improvise. Improvise is just like something you want to have in your deck. Unless you have some weird deck that doesn't have artifacts, get Improvise. Anyway, it is 2 and a blue with Improvise. So again, you can tap just 2 of any artifact, or artifacts creatures would work too, and you get this for 1 blue only. Counter any spell as well. Again, is 3, so it's higher up there. It's not the highest, right? 3 is a lot extra. If you cast it on their first spell, they'll probably pay the 3, but not be able to cast a second spell. Still very good. So 22 cents for that one. An Abstruse Interference. First of all, it's devoid. Doesn't really. Its color identity is still blue, so I don't know why that might not really matter. Anyway, it's a small tax that is only 1, but if you want to make tokens, that's what this is good for. This makes a 1/1 token that you can sacrifice for mana, right? And you don't have to tap it, you could just sacrifice it. So you could just blow it up and get 1 mana right away. It does not say tap to sacrifice, that is an important thing. Yeah. And whether or not they pay the tax, you get that creature, okay? That is a very important note. So especially if you're running a Convoke deck is the main thing I was thinking of. You can use that creature token, tap it, get mana, and then blow it up and get a second mana, right? You can tap it to help pay for the cost of the spell and then blow it up to get another colorless mana. So it's a counter spell. Not likely a counter spell, but you can use it to make this token that you can use to make mana, which I think is actually really useful. 26 cents. Sorry. Anyway, Lofty Denial. The tax is much higher if you control a creature with flying. This is something I have said in many videos. Getting bonuses for doing things you want to do anyway, right? You don't need a deck that's all flyers, you need 1 flyer. You want to have 1 flyer on the board at least, so it gives you a bonus for doing what you want to do. Love it, right? Counter target spell unless they pay 1, but if you have a flyer, they pay 4. Okay, this does cost you 2, but they have to pay 4 extra to be able to cast their spell. Once again, early to mid game, that's just counter, right? That's countering the spell. Even late game, second spell. Counter the second spell. Very likely not going to have the 4 extra. But anyway, 12 cents only. For 12 cents, I think this is well worth it. And then Mind Static. This I only like because it is such a high mana tax. This is the highest at 6. They have to pay 6 extra or the spell is countered. Unless that spell is like key to them winning the game, they're not paying 6. You're not paying 6 extra for like almost any spell. It does cost you 4 to cast, but hopefully you've got like mana reducers. Again, this would be a great one to have Arcane Melee on the battlefield, so it's 2 cheaper. Paying 2 for this and then they have to pay 6 extra, that is very, very worth it. I think in a deck where you do have a lot of mana cost reducers, for instance, this would be a great addition. Potentially 1 blue, and it costs them 6 extra mana to cast a spell. Crazy, absolutely crazy. That is 3 cents, 3 whole cents. All right, so again, we got Mind Static at 3 cents. Then Miscast. Oh, sorry, I should move my camera. Miscast is 173. Lookout's Dispersal at 16 cents. Metallic Rebuke at 22 cents. That should be more expensive. That should be like a staple in a lot of decks. But anyway. Obtuse Interference, 26 cents. And Lofty Denial, 12 cents. Once again, I think the two that I would be most likely to put into any deck are the cheapest ones. Lookout, or not the Metallic Rebuke, 22 cents, and Lofty Denial, 12 cents. I think, yeah, are the ones that can go into any deck. The cheapest ones are not that. Anyway, okay. Thank you and have a good one. All right, take it easy.